And it's just a huge, huge honor to have Angie Anderson come over and be on my show. She is the owner of Team TriLife.com.
Yes.
And Angie Anderson is the head coach of Team TriLife. She resides in, actually, she doesn't really live in Ahwatukee. She lives just around the corner. You go through the point.
I'm very close.
And you dog-leg left, just a little jog. But we let her partially fit in Ahwatukee since she spends most of her working day in Ahwatukee. She resides in Phoenix, Arizona, coaching athletes locally and abroad. Every program is personalized based on the athlete's history, goals, time available, work schedule, and life commitments. Success is not a one-size-fits-all process, and a successful training program must reflect this. She counsels athletes on the critical elements of race planning, mental strategies for success, nutritional strategies, and everything else you need as a triathlete to have your best race day. This holistic approach has led to immense success for her athletes in the past 10 years. Many athletes of hers have placed in their age group, qualified for Boston, ITU Worlds, and 70.3 Worlds and Kona. So many lifetime firsts and lifetime best across all distances. She is thankful for the effort her athletes commit to her daily. Her training philosophy is based on building a strong foundation through ongoing communication and education. She left teaching in 2006, but she'll always be a teacher at heart. Discovering what makes her athletes thrive, then using appropriately paced workout intensity, frequency, and duration to challenge and excite each athlete on her roster. Adjustments based on athlete feedback. Life is fluid. Athletes respond to training at different paces. This must be accounted for within a training program. Athletes with unusual life calendars due to shift work, travel, and family commitments have seen immense success on our team. Your life is put in your calendar first. Your training is built around it. And in full disclosure, she was my swim coach.
Very wordy, isn't it?
She got me. I joined. You helped me get through the swim. I did 3 Ironmans in 3 years. And she said she wanted to take me on as a client because for swimming, she said, since you're shaped like a big fat whale, you should be made for swimming.
I don't think I actually said that.
I think something
I was far
like
more
that.
gentle.
Maybe but you are so awesome, and so many of my friends credit so much of their. Especially is swim your
no. No, and I would definitely.
Well, it's the hardest part of a try, though. I mean, when you look at a marathon, you have to run down the street and pretend a dog's chase you. To ride on a bicycle, I mean, you just pedal. But swimming, good. Every time you gave me a swim lesson, you taught me something. Now, there seems to be more to swimming than gymnastics or.
Swimming is for sure a technical sport, but cycling is too. People don't give a lot of credit to the amount of coordination and time it takes to become a good cyclist and to really be able to maximize the efficiency of your pedal stroke. And same with running. You know, all of them have their own key pieces. And as a triathlon coach, I believe that I am a good overall system viewer of the coach. And I also have strong technical skills in swim, bike, and run. But I would always bow to a professional swim coach, somebody who's been immersed in swimming for their whole life, as being the expert. Same as somebody who's been immersed in cycling their whole life, and same as someone who's been immersed in running their whole life. I think we need to be very careful about admitting that, or like understanding our place in the echelon. So I'm a big program viewer. I can look at all the small pieces, but if somebody's out of my scope, I'm not scared to go, hey, let's find somebody who can meet your needs better than I can. Especially when it comes to those single sport skills, because in triathlon it's 3 sports, and you want to get good at all 3. And I am very solid technically in all 3, but I'm also aware there's people that have got higher levels of skill. So. Well,
she's a very humble girl. She wins most of her races. I mean, you're a legend in Ahwatukee. No, everybody I know you says you're beyond a legend. I mean, and you walk the talk. But I still think I agree with everything you said. But I still thought, for me personally, swimming was extreme. If you would ask me before I signed up for Ironman, can you swim? It's like, well, yeah, I had a swimming pool with 4 boys. Of course I can swim. Oh my God, that's quite
swimming
different.
Is so mental too. You know, getting in open water with it's such an uncontrolled environment for us. And then when we think that we've got it narrowed down and okay, I can do this, because you go do a swim at Tukeetown Lake or a race at Tukeetown Lake, and then you're going to race in Cozumel, and there's an ocean swim, and there's going to be a current, or you're in really, really cold water in St. George. So there's so many variables that can be thrown at us that are really difficult to prepare for. And that's where having a good coach can help you prepare mentally, physically, nutritionally, along with realistic goals for what you're going to encounter, not just in the swim, but in the whole race.
So if you're following us on Twitter at Tukeetown, Angie is at TriLife Angie. And I just
Good job, Howard. Look
shout
at you.
out to Corrine, Flagstaff, Half Marys, all goals met, great day at Lifetime with Jim, Becca, Vicky, and Patrick. I want to say something else. I was with you guys for 3 years, and I would say I noticed a lot of observations. Number one, so many of these people, it was their whole social life, and they even told me at different points, like, I moved to Ahwatukee, I didn't know anybody. Now all my girlfriends are in this group. So it's a big social component too.
You know, I think as triathletes, actually I was speaking to another triathlete this morning about it. We have a tendency to add triathlon to a busy job, to family, to kids, to all of that. And so it can become very overwhelming. So something that has a tendency to disappear is our social time. So where other people might go have a glass of wine or have a book club, we choose to go for a run or go for a bike ride with our friends. And honestly, that's where I have all my social connection, is through friends. And that's one of the things that I really value about Ahwatukee, is since I moved here from Gilbert a year and a half ago, just about now, all of a sudden I know that there's these group runs on Wednesday and Friday at Lifetime and at Nosh Run that I can go to. And I've got a group
At Noshman?
Nosh, the Nosh Run on Friday mornings.
The bagel shop.
Nosh. And
Bagel
it's a
Nosh.
fantastic run. All different abilities. People are really friendly. And then out of that came a group of people that I ride with, and I go to the pool in Tempe, and that's the reason I was late today, is because
At
as I
Lifetime?
was getting out at Lifetime, I see 3 people that I know as I'm trying to leave, and I'm rushing here. So it becomes so much a part, not just a part of our social life for me, and for a lot of us, I would say it is our social life.
And the other thing is, we always worked out at 5 a.m. So in that routine, if I was running, biking, swimming at 5 a.m., after 3 years of that, it seemed like I knew half the people on the road or in the swimming pool. I mean, I just got an email today from the attorney that I used to swim next to. Do you remember him? Rick, what was his name? But anyway, I mean, if you always go someplace at the same time, you see other people that have that same habit or pattern, and I felt like it really opened up my social world. I mean, it's the same people in Ahwatukee. In fact, I'm so good now, like I can spot that it's Wendy running like a block away.
Well, Wendy has a pretty distinctive run. Yeah.
She has a distinctive gait.
Yeah.
Right, or you call it a gait or a run?
Her stride, her positioning. When she gets tired, we were teasing her the other day about her head going sideways a little bit.
And I can sit there a block away saying, that's Wendy.
And her hair.
Her
hair.
She's got more hair than me and you combined.
Oh, yeah, big time. Yeah.
And,
But yeah, it is a big part of our social life. And the other thing, too, is I think, if people are listening to this and they think, I can't be a part of that, I'm not fast enough, I'm good enough, I can't swim. Well, you'll be really amazed at the level of support you can get by just going to an environment like Lifetime Pool or the Ahwatukee Swimming and Tennis Club. They have a beautiful pool there that's open during the day. There's nobody to watch you, and you can get in and get comfortable with it. But triathlon is not elitist. It's one of the things that I love the most about our sport is that the final finisher in an Ironman is celebrated almost more than the first finisher in an Ironman. There is a party at 17 hours when the last finisher is coming across, and they're always in the video.
So what's she saying? You might not understand. So in an Ironman, they give you, it starts at 6?
Well, it depends now, but you have 17 hours to finish.
You have 17 hours. So an old fat grandpa like me, who no one ever confused with an athlete, if you really work hard all year long, you can get under that 17 hours. I was always 16 hours and something.
Yep.
But there were guys, what's the fastest guy who's running over? Like who would run over?
Like the world records are in the 7:30 to 7:40
Okay, so the
range
fastest guy is 7.5.
Maybe
and then your old
7:40.
guys are 17 hours.
Yep.
And it's so much, it's fun and
the size of the accomplishment is the same for everybody.
yeah.
I really love that about it as well. So there's a lot of positives, and if you are nervous, reach out to a coach, reach out to a friend who's done it. and you'll find ways to achieve it. Buying a bike can certainly be a barrier. There's a lot of good bike support in Ahwatukee. Curbside is one. And I don't know actually the actual location, but Global Bikes and Landis are there very close.
Okay, so there's one on Warner and 48th.
And that is curbside.
That's curbside.
That's curbside, yeah.
Can you send him here?
To speak to you?
To be on the show?
Sure, we can put you in touch with Mike. Yeah, he's been there for a long time.
Yeah, or I send you an email me and email him.
Yeah.
And then there was one on right behind my dental office.
A Cactus?
Yeah.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah, so they shut down. But
so curbside is still open.
Curbside is still open, and then if you're looking for a bike, Steve Bay, which is run by Steve Elwell, and he of course is a iconic cycling fixture, triathlon fixture in Ahwatukee as well. There's on Facebook, it's called Steve Bay, and people are always selling bikes on there. So again, you want to talk to someone who has some understanding of bikes before you go buy a used bike to make sure that you've got something that's in the right range for fit and the components are okay and that you're not getting screwed.
How many races have you won in your lifetime?
Oh, I don't know.
Could you count them?
Oh,
the point I'm trying to make is this. What I notice in the bike, and I'm not a cyclist or anything like that, what I notice is like you buy a really nice bike and it weighs 30 pounds. But to get that bike to weigh 20 pounds, now it's gone from a $1,000 bike to a $10,000 bike. And what I thought to myself is, I'm not going to pay $10,000.
But you didn't you?
To have a 10-pound lighter bike. I'm just going to lose 10 pounds of fat. No, I bought a $1,500 bike.
That's very conservative.
But then my
Howard.
coach on the first one, the guy I was riding with, so I got into this. My dental assistant's husband was all into this, and his name was Joe. And to do the Ironman and break that 17 hours, he said you have to have a 15-mile-an-hour pace at the minimum. And it was about 2 months before the race, and I was still pedaling 14 miles an hour. And Joe and his wife Colleen kept doing the math, and Joe just said, "Dude, it's not going to happen." I go, "Dang, what do you think I should do?" And he says, "Well, number one, you abs are made in the kitchen. You gotta quit eating so much." But he said, "But number two, for a trick," he goes, "your wheels are cheap and they're clingy, and if you bought the nicest wheels for that bike." So my bike was $1,500, so I upgraded to $2,500 for two wheels. The first time I rode it, I was riding 16.
Hey, you can definitely buy some speed. But for
I
those
bought
of you
2 miles an hour.
Those of you who don't want to do that, you can
just lose 10 pounds.
You can
quit eating Twinkies and donuts.
We generally don't like to suggest people buy speed, but there is definitely some speed.
What do you eat when you're at Burger King?
I haven't been to Burger King in so many years.
See,
I don't even know.
That's why she could probably do it on.
But I love Dairy Queen Blizzards.
That's right. You told me that was your weak spot.
Yeah. I like Dairy Queen Blizzards a whole lot.
That's your weakness?
And today at lunch I had 2 squares of dark chocolate with my lunch, and I eat more than you would ever imagine.
Well, but you burn off more calories.
I do burn off a lot, but I mean, you'll think this is funny. One day I was tracking my calories. I tracked them for 3 days, and then I got embarrassed. The first day I was at 900 calories by 9 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I was over 3,000 calories on day 2. And I just went, you know what? I don't need to know how much I'm consuming. I just know I consume a lot. And I'm 130 pounds. And yeah, it's a plus to what we do.
So what are my Ahwatukee homies going to find at teamtrilife.com? Team TriLife.
I've got a Facebook page that I will quite often put up articles. Interesting articles, might be on technique, things that are inspirational. I put a lot of blog posts up about my athletes. Actually, that's probably the number one thing that I post is athlete celebrations. So in my view, it doesn't matter if you're like I said, a finisher close to the back or my world champions. It doesn't matter where you're at. I celebrate them all the same. But I'm very much, as a coach and educator, that's my job. And I'm constantly being educated. I actually just came home from Vegas. I was there for 2 days for a power coaching certification through Slow Twitch. So that was Thursday and Friday last week. I'm constantly working on my own knowledge and broadening and challenging myself also, because I think as a triathlon coach, this is what you said about being a dentist. When you have nobody to talk to about, I did this root canal Did I give the right antibiotics? Well, as a triathlon coach, we don't have anybody to communicate with either. And so I really let myself into situations to learn from different people. And on that note, I mean, I'm doing Ironman number 15 here in 3 weeks.
For yourself?
For myself, number 15. And every time I do an Ironman, I hire a different coach. And the reason that I do that is because I get a different perspective on training. And I really like that challenge. I like thinking outside the box. And, you know, I have my foundational philosophies, and I stay true to those. But within those foundational philosophies, there's room to wiggle, and it also gives me the ability to adapt to different athletes because I'm exposed to different training methods all the time versus being this is what I know, this is what I do, and I'm going to apply what I know to every athlete. Which
my job is to try to ask the questions. I think I would be pretty good at asking questions because on this subject, because I've known you for 3 years. What % of your clients are girls versus boys?
I would say it's about 50-50 actually. It fluctuates. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, I've got all women right now and only a couple men, and then all of a sudden I had a whole bunch of men contact me, and I took the men up, and now I've got 2 women.
And what is the average age range? I mean, what is your sweet spot for age?
I would say as a general rule, they are 40 to 55 would be where the majority of them are. But, you know, I've got my little Speedy Becca, another Tukey. She's a trainer at Lifetime Fitness, and Speedy girl, she's 28 years old and just setting the world on fire in her first year. And I've got Jim, who's 61, and he's doing amazing. So... yeah, and
but here's what they're thinking. I just found this video for you. This is, I don't know if you're old enough to remember this. Do you remember, this was so funny.
Hey, I'm 50. I can remember a lot.
Are you 50, really?
I am 50.
And do you remember a man?
I'm entitled to my share of happiness. I refuse to beat myself up. I am an attractive person. I am fun to be with.
Who is that?
Saturday Night Live.
With Stuart Small.
Oh.
Daily affirmation with Stuart Small. They always think I am too out of shape. I have let myself go. I mean, to get a personal trainer, it's all going to be fear. It's all going to be you're talking about running, and they're like, I haven't ran in 5 years. You're talking about swimming, and they're like, I only swim if I'm on a raft with a beer. How do you get clients? I mean, they always say the hardest part of the workout is your first step out the door.
Well, so there's a few things to accept. Number one, when somebody starts an exercise program and they haven't been doing anything for a long time, on average, and this is a general guideline, but it takes people 7 times before they actually commit to it. So they'll start and stop on average 7 times because it's not easy. And waking up at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning to beat the heat when you live in Phoenix, it's got some challenges. And what slowly starts to happen is you start, and then there's something kind of calling you back when you stop, and then you start and you stop again. And you start to realize that you feel better on the days you do it than on the days that you don't. And you also have to have some things in place. You have to have your family supporting you and encouraging you to get out the door when it's hard. And you also have to have a friendship group in place. So maybe this is something you're tackling with someone to make you accountable, or you've got a coach to make you accountable. But I find a lot of times people think they're going to start running, and they pick up and they say, I'm going to run 30 minutes today. Well, whoa, sister, that's way too much. You cannot run 30 minutes if you haven't been running. So I take my athletes who are just starting or coming back from injury, and we start on a really gentle walk, run, build. And the goal is that you finish running before you need to finish running, and then we increase how much you run and decrease how much you walk over a period of time. And sometimes people will get stuck at a point and they're like, Angie, I just can't get comfortable over this. So then we'll back up and then we'll push it again. But that approach of being very gentle and also having, this sounds bad, but low expectations of yourself. Because I think the number one defeating mechanism in our brain is, I'm going to do this, this is my goal, and I only get to hear, what's the point, I can't do it. And it's not that there was anything wrong with that goal. The goal was just too far reaching for the moment. In 3 months, that goal is probably realistic, and you might get past that goal. But for today, you need to set your goal easier than you think is reasonable. So maybe it's a 15-minute get out the door and run for 5 minutes out of that 15. That's it. Run 1 minute, walk 4. Run 1 minute, walk 4 for 15 minutes. You've set the goal at a reasonable mark, and then you do that a couple times, and then you bump it up. Maybe it's 20 minutes, and you increase the run and decrease the walk. But it's got to be realistic expectations that you can check off along the way. That series of accountability, family supporting you, and eventually you'll get to the point where, yeah, I'm having a better day because I did this today.
You know what I always thought the hardest part of running was? When your ankle bracelet is sliding, jumping up down.
Your ankle bracelet?
From the police tracking.
Oh, that's hard. Yeah, but you run fast that way.
You run fast that way
Yeah,
with the
that's
ankle
good
bracelet?
sprint work because you're running from the police, right?
You're running from the police?
You got to take off, so.
So another big fear thing they might have is cost.
Cost is a big one. So again, for triathlon, Ironman in this area gets so much notoriety, right? We have
It's a cult.
Ironman. It's a cult.
It's a cult.
So
Is it not?
lots of times people think if you do triathlon, you're doing Ironman, and that isn't true. Try for the Cure. So Try for the Cure is in Scottsdale, and the race director is Diane Burschhauser, who's one of my athletes and very good friends. That is the most friendly, supportive, welcoming environment you could possibly have for absolute beginners.
What's it called?
It's Try for the Cure.
Try
and
for
it
the
raises
Cure, right?
money. It raises money for breast cancer. All the money goes to breast cancer. You should see the support that they've got for this race. I mean, they will help you find a bike. They do bike skills clinics. They do transition clinics. They do group rides on the weekends to get you out riding and comfortable. You can do it on a mountain bike. You could borrow a bike from your neighbor. And just to get the experience of what it's like to swim, bike, and run. And I think it's only a 400-meter swim, I want to say an 8-mile bike, but it might even be shorter, and a 2-mile run. You could do it as a team. If you're nervous one year, get 3 friends, do it together, and then if you love it, you could do it the next year. So you could do it the next year on your own. You don't have to do big. Start small and work your way up. And Ironman is an immense goal. It's an incredible goal. It's an incredible journey, and the satisfaction at crossing the finish line is incredible. But I can tell you that for a woman crossing the finish line, this is women, because Try for the Cure is women only.
That is sexist.
I know. A woman crossing the finish line in her first triathlon at Try for the Cure is as emotional and overwhelming, I'm going to get emotional, as it is for somebody crossing the finish line of an Ironman. It just depends on where you started and where you're going, and that really dictates the
That
significance
is so
of the
sweet that you
moment.
got verklempt on that. Yeah, I think you're an adorable person.
Oh, thank you.
And you totally got choked up. Brian, will you please stop interrupting us? We're trying to have a podcast, and you're just...
And you didn't tell me that it was on video, so I didn't even brush my hair. I would like to say I got out of the swimming pool and rushed here without so much as, like, this is swimming hair. So, yeah.
I would like to say that I haven't had a bath in a week.
And you didn't
I
put makeup
rushed,
on, so
and
we're
I didn't
equal.
put makeup on, and I can't find my wig. I mean,
Okay.
it's always right there, my Dolly Parton wig. And no, but the reason the breast cancer thing, you can't think of that as men only. So when you go to elite hospitals like Mayo Clinic, we have one in Scottsdale
Yeah.
and Rochester, Scripps out in San Diego, Houston, the Cleveland Clinic, the Sloan Kettering Feeding, where people that are say, I'm going to die. I'll sell my house, my car, I'll sell everything to try to live. When you have already gone through hospitals and they can't find, like I have a dentist friend. He was in his town and he just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So finally, his wife drove him to 2 hours away to a much bigger town in Kansas City. And they couldn't do anything. They didn't know what's wrong. They just said, we don't know. He's just going to die. So she actually hired a airplane ambulance and flew him to Mayo Clinic.
Wow.
And when she got into Mayo Clinic, they said, okay, look, your doctors in Kansas City and St. Joe, I'm sure they were fantastic. So we're going to look for everything that they would have never checked. And he had a yeast infection.
Oh, wow.
So when a girl, you think yeast infection, you think women. Well, people don't realize that men have nipples, they get breast cancer. Men get yeast infections. But when you start looking at artificial intelligence versus physicians, especially emergency room, your best diagnosis and treatment plan is when the patient is the same age and race and sex as you are. So, if you're so like, say you're an American Indian. they have different disease patterns in than say an Irish guy with say diabetes or whatever. And men, physicians, never think that their male patients might have a yeast infection or breast cancer, but breast cancer, 1% of breast cancer is in men. And you're more likely to die. Your best health care would be artificial intelligence, which they use in the military. Because say you're on a aircraft carrier, well, your doctor can't treat every disease for 5,000 people, so they use computers, and their computers always beat emergency room physicians.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I should actually clarify that, because this last year, Try for the Cure added a 5K for men.
Nice.
So they did include men, because there's so many husbands they're supporting.
Right.
And so men and women, but there is a race for men, but the triathlon is just for women. So that's a really easy, small way for somebody to get involved and to try triathlon with a ton of support and goodwill. It's just incredible.
So do you like them to go to your website, teamtrilife.com, or do you prefer your Facebook page?
Both are good ways to connect to me. I think a lot of the information is the same on both. Honestly, most people find me from word of mouth, I think. I get the odd contact through my Facebook page or through the website, but it's generally word of mouth.
Well, I'm going to get you a podcast patient.
Oh, you are?
A podcast word of mouth. Someone's
Not
gonna
a
watch.
Patient. How about a client?
I mean a client.
Because as a general rule, I don't have patience.
But I
do have a lot of patience with people like you.
You're a very humble person. You have 14 Ironman finishes, including Hawaii World Championships.
That's where I'm headed in 3 weeks.
Yeah, first in AG. What's AG in Ironman?
Age group.
First in age group in Ironman. Fourth in age group at Ironman Boulder. Third in age group at St. George. Third woman overall at HITS.
Okay, stop.
No, I mean, you're a legend. I mean, my friends think you are not, they think you are an elite athlete.
Well, I'm not an elite athlete. I'm an older woman who does okay in my age group. But I'm far happier to celebrate the accomplishments of others.
Let's talk about this, because I've been in Ahwatukee 30 years, and you just admitted that you are 50, right?
I'm 50, yeah.
By 50, I've seen this divergent for 30 years. When you're a 50-year-old woman and you're already overweight and taking 4 or 5 prescription pills, they weren't at my practice 30 years later. They went off the deep end. And the girls, I mean, how many girls at 50, how many men at 50 couldn't even run a mile?
Oh, for sure. I know that I'm...
I mean, what percent would you say that is?
I'm not... I don't know. I know I'm not the norm for most 50-year-olds. So, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of how active I am. So, and you know, like, I've got some health issues as well. And I have something called, I don't know if this is even relevant, but called familial hypercholesteremia. And untreated, I have a 40 times increased chance of heart disease. Because my LDLs are genetically extremely high. And so I found out I had high LDL when I was 19, but you were talking about the Mayo Clinic, and that made me think about that. I hadn't seen a specialist since I was 28 years old. And they put me on Lipitor at that point, but blamed my LDLs actually on the fact that I was nursing my daughter. And I was turning 50 this year, and we have insurance that lets us go to the Mayo Clinic. And I thought, you know, I'm going to go see a cardiologist at the Mayo Clinic just to get this checked and see what's going on. And I never had a name. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I had high LDLs. So I sat down with this wonderful cardiologist in June. And I said, I think I'm wasting your time. And because I'm not their typical patient, they were trying to give me exercise counseling and nutritional counseling, and they would call me and they were like, we're not really sure what to do with you because it doesn't sound like you need this. So by the time I got to sit down with the doctor, I honestly thought he would kick me out the door, and he said, what can I do? And then he looked at my blood work and he went, you need to be here. Because what I have is, they say only 1 in 10 people who have it know. And it's this genetically really high LDLs. My body makes a ton of LDL, which is low-density lipoprotein, the bad cholesterol. And also, I can't clear it. I have no way to metabolize it, so it just sits. And he said the biggest reason for me to be there is my children. So my 2 daughters have a 50% chance of having this. And they haven't been tested yet. They're 21 and 23, and they need to be tested. But very high risk of heart disease, young, if you're not treated. If you're on a statin and the statin's working for you, your risk goes down to normal. And actually in Europe, they'll treat kids as young as 8 years old. They're testing cholesterol on kids who come from a FH, it's called familial hypercholesteremia. They're testing offspring of adults who have it and putting them on statins as young as 8 years old. That's how significant it is. And the most famous, I guess, just happened this year is Bob Harper from The Biggest Loser, fitness guy, trainer. He dropped of a heart attack in a gym in, I think, February. Massive heart attack, his heart stopped.
Can you text me that?
He has this disease, and he had never been tested. His cholesterol had never been tested, and he didn't know. And so they kept him alive from, there's 2 physicians there. I read the story, and I watched him be interviewed. And there's 2 physicians there, and they restarted his heart using the defibrillator in the gym, and he's still alive, but he wasn't aware that he had this cholesterol disease. So I'm bringing it up, I guess, maybe as a little bit of a public service announcement that get your cholesterol checked, and if that LDL is exceptionally high, do some investigation about it. Also, I've seen doctors my whole life, and nobody ever told me the risks. Nobody ever told me how significant it was. So even though I was on statins, I would go on and off them. I wasn't sick, right? Like, I've never taken it seriously. Now that I know, I take it far more seriously because I would like to be around for my grandchildren. So total aside, but I mean, I look healthy. I'm strong. I'm fit. I'm going to do the Hawaii Ironman in 3 weeks. But I got things going on inside too. And the other thing too is when you exercise as much as I do, your good cholesterol is high. And so my whole life I've been told your good cholesterol is high, so you're okay. But the cardiologist who's a specialist in this at the Mayo Clinic told me that doesn't matter when you have this disease. My HDLs are not protecting me in the same way they would be for somebody who doesn't have this disease. So yeah, get it checked and make sure
I'm looking
you're
at
okay.
Bob Harper. Bob Harper reveals the condition that led to his near fatal heart attack.
Near fatal.
So he didn't die then.
No, he went into full cardiac arrest though. His heart stopped.
It's so interesting because initially,
Wow, I remember him. And I want to do a PSA. The women are the ones that get all the physicals.
Yes, and men don't. My husband's never had his cholesterol checked.
I
He's
know.
51,
Yeah.
and he has never had his cholesterol checked.
See, I didn't even know that, and I already knew it. I mean, men live 5 years shorter than women. A lot of things are their car insurance rates are higher for a reason. They have higher. The 30,000 die in a car. That's them. Another 30,000 die on the accidents, falling off a roof or a tree or a trimmer. That's usually a male job. Suicide rates, women attempt it more, but they always do it with like a butter knife on Facebook.
Oh, come on, too much graphics.
and men always do it with a lethal weapon.
Yeah, I heard
and so men's attempted suicide to completed suicide is damn near one. Oh, they almost get 100%. Where women vary. And then when you feel bad, like my doctor, all my physician friends are just like blown away. They're like, yeah, he had this lump for 5 years.
Yeah.
And when he finally came in, it was a 14-inch long tumor that was in his kidneys, and we're all like, dude, if you just would have came in a year ago,
We would have saved you.
but why so PSA, and who lives the shortest in America? Single males.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Who lives the longest? Single women. Like my oldest sister's a Catholic nun.
We don't have the stress from
Exactly.
men in our lives.
My
Okay?
my oldest
Just
sister's
tell
a
my
Catholic
husband
nun.
when I get home.
That nunnery, all those women lived into their 90s. And then when men marry women, their life expectancy comes down and ours goes up. And the saddest fact that we deal with in Ahwatukee a lot, which is loneliness, if you're a male over 65 and your wife dies, half die within a year.
Oh, that's very sad.
They just quit eating. I mean, they just stare into space and quit eating and go into full depression. Another thing that exercise will help.
Exercise helps a lot, yeah. And
It's-
that social piece too, right? That reason to get up in the morning. It's big.
And I also want to say that 70% of healthcare dollars spent in the United States are your 4 chronic diseases. Cardiac, pulmonary, diabetes. What's the other one I'm missing, Ryan?
Cancer?
Cancer. Very good. And then the up and fastest growing ones is oral health, because they're linking that to everything. Oral health and mental health. And I was blown away by the paper I read out of Johns Hopkins, which is a very elite institution. And they said when people have mental health, the depression, bipolar, with every mental health disease, with the exception of schizophrenia, the people who exercise an hour a day did so much better. Mm-hmm. And the way he was signing the paper, it's like he was saying, okay, if you take your pill, that's X. But if you take your pill and work out 40 minutes a day, you're almost getting a 2X benefit. So if you're over 65 and your wife died, or you're fighting depression, or you're fighting bipolar, or things like that, a daily exercise routine it's like medicine.
You know, I think so. A few things happen when people are trying to start an exercise routine as well. They go too hard. They think that they need it to be breathing hard, and you really don't. You need to stay in that aerobic zone, that low heart rate zone, to start to promote your fat burning, to develop your cardiovascular fitness. It shouldn't be hard. If you go hard on Monday, and then you go moderately hard on Tuesday, Wednesday you're exhausted, Thursday you can't get up and your program's done. Whereas if you flip that around and you go easy on Monday, take Tuesday off, easy on Wednesday in that fat burning zone, in the low heart rate zone, so Monday on, Tuesday off, Wednesday you go easy again, Thursday off, Friday you do easy, maybe a hair longer, and you just alternate.
You had to bring up hair.
Yeah, a hair longer. A hair, like on, off, and it's all easy. Easy is repeatable. Hard can come down the road once you've got the fitness to go hard. But again, it's that setting expectations. You go hard, you don't feel good at the end, you're not successful because you can't meet your goal, and you can't repeat it day after day after day. And that's the number one thing you want, whether you're 65 and dealing with a mental health issue, or you're overweight, or you're just inactive and you want to get some exercise. You can just simply do a walk to start. And then maybe in 2 weeks you're walking up a hill halfway. And then maybe in 3 weeks or 4 weeks you're walking all the way up the hill. You know, I would say set your goals very realistic.
But how come you never made it fun? I mean, how come you didn't make it like we walked to the Waffle House on Monday, and then on Tuesday we walked to the IHOP?
Well, you could do that, but that nutrition. I'm going to tell
walk
you.
To Denny's.
You quote research all the time. I'm going to tell you about a very interesting research article that was sent to me, and it was some researchers who went to Africa and they followed a tribe of hunter-gatherers. And their goal was to see the metabolic rate of these people who are chasing. So in the story, like this was not a story, this is what they did. The men shot a giraffe with a poisonous arrow, and it takes 2 to 3 days for the giraffe to go down. So they shoot the giraffe, and they have to track this giraffe for 2 to 3 days, and they hope they can find it. So they're literally going through the forest in Africa trying to find it. During that time, the women are digging for roots and whatever it is they can find, so they're active all the time too. If they find the giraffe, they feed the tribe for a week. All right, so the researchers expected the metabolic rate of these people to be significantly higher than the humans in our society who sit at a desk. They found that the metabolic rate was the same for the people in Africa who are hunter-gatherers, who have to work day in and day out, be physically active, as the people here. Our problem is food consumption. Our problem is that we eat too much, we eat too fast, we eat too high cooked sugar, and that's what our problem is. Exercise makes everything better, but if you don't manage your diet, you're not going to make any gains.
I know that opioids are a huge problem that are killing 50,000 Americans a year. I mean, the Vietnam War in 10 years killed 68,000 Americans and 2 million Vietnamese. And so you're having almost the 10-year Vietnam casualty every year, opioids. But the three biggest abused drugs are sugar, nicotine, and alcohol, which they sell on 25 different corners in Ahwatukee.
And sugar we're given to our children in spades. My kids are both lean, healthy kids. I never eliminated sugar, but you know what? We just didn't have it in the house. Like if they went to McDonald's. They got to go to buy candy. I mean, we never said no to a treat. I mean, not very often. But we just didn't have it in the house, so it wasn't something that they were exposed to on a daily habit. Every dinner started with veggies and dip. From the time they were old enough to chew.
And what would the dip be?
Ranch dip.
So like carrots, celery?
Carrots, celery, cucumbers. They loved cucumbers, peppers. Every single day, I made a plate with vegetables and a dip in the middle. And that's what they had for every single dinner. Like, that was the first thing that we had. And they didn't know any different. And we also had decent quantity control, I guess. So, I'm not vegan. I'm not paleo. I'm not going into ketogenic diet. I eat all the food groups. I eat fat. I eat sugar. But I eat everything in moderation. I don't restrict anything. I drink milk. I eat cheese. I love meat, beef, fish. I have a lot of vegetables in my daily diet. And I can tell you, as a 50-year-old, I very seldom get sick and I very seldom get hurt. It works very well for me. I don't take supplements.
You know, one thing, I mean, in our lifetime,
that's me, not everybody.
In your 50 laps around the sun and my 55 laps around the sun, how many diet fads have we lived through?
So many.
I mean,
and
it's every year it's another one.
Yeah.
And when you look at just the hardcore research, and you talk to people who have PhDs in obesity researchers at places like University of Louisville, they say it's just total calories. They say if you burn 2,000 a day and eat 1,500, you'll lose a pound a week. But if you bike, swim, run, and climb Mount Everest and go to Burger King, you're gonna gain weight.
You're gonna gain weight, yeah. And I mean, sometimes that happens, that people go on an exercise program and because they start exercising, they think they can increase their caloric consumption.
Right.
There's another reason to be defeated.
Yeah.
I started exercising, but I'm gaining, not losing weight.
I remember the first
that's
time.
A challenge.
I remember the first
It's gotta
time
be
I did a
calories.
100-mile bike ride.
It's a big accomplishment.
And I came home and I felt so proud of myself. I ordered a what's the name of the pizza place we always order from? Spinato's. And I ate an entire sausage, onion, green pepper,
defeating the purpose of the
pizza,
ride.
because I thought, I just biked 100 miles. But I would learn later in life that I didn't burn off a large sausage, onion, green pepper pizza,
didn't.
But at least I drank it with Miller Lite. I mean, I didn't have Miller beer.
Okay.
I had the light beer.
It's a sacrifice. It's all a sacrifice, Howard.
But I only got God. The time goes so fast with you. Another big question I know that they're answering. Everybody's got these Fitbits. Like, you walked in.
I took it off
with a fancy watch. Is that, what would you say to Dad who works at Intel and these things? Do you think that's part of a healthy, to get on the health track? Should he get a Fitbit? So because there's people on Facebook posting how many steps they have a day. And
yeah, I mean, it depends on your reasons for doing this, I guess. But a simple stopwatch and just saying I'm going to go and walk for 15 minutes today is enough. I don't think that you need to record it. But if you find that recording how many steps you take is satisfying and you like to look, and the next day you want to be a little bit more and the next day you want to be a little bit more, then by all means use those tools, right? This watch you could talk to Mars with this thing. It's a triathlon watch. And certainly people don't need that. I can, and I have an Apple Watch that I much prefer to this. This is my training watch. But
an Apple Watch that you can wear in the swimming pool?
No, I don't wear it in the pool, but I like the looks of it better. It's smaller, and I like that I can text on it. I can talk to it. Yeah. I really like the voice to text on that. So yeah, it just depends on what motivates you. For some people, having just a calendar where they write, today I walked 15 minutes, and maybe they put a smiley face there, and then the next day they say I walked 15 minutes. That visual is enough. For somebody who likes to download their workouts, having the Fitbit and having it go to Garmin Connect or MyFitnessPal or whatever, and to see the progress on a software, computer-based system is really rewarding. So it's just figuring out what motivates you to keep you going. Whatever keeps you going is a good thing.
I recommend Garmin. You know why?
Garmin's good. This
is
a Garmin.
Why? Because I was born in Wichita, Kansas, and Garmin, and when they do the brand studies, it's the biggest brand that came out of Kansas.
Oh, wow.
And you know what the biggest brand out of Arizona is? You'll never guess in years. Do you know what it is?
I have no idea.
It's Best Western.
Oh, wow.
That hotel that came out.
Do you want to hear my little Garmin story?
Yeah.
So the town that I lived in Alberta for 15 years, Cochrane, Alberta.
And that's right above which state?
Montana.
Right above Montana.
Yeah, we're above Montana.
So it's British Columbia, then
Alberta.
Alberta.
Okay. So small town, and a company started there years ago called Dynastream, and they created ANT technology. So all of the technology that talks from watch to heart rate strap, ANT technology, ANT Plus, was built in Cochrane, in the town that I live in. And several years ago, Garmin came and bought Ant from Dynastream. And so it's kind of funny because when I was in Vegas this week, it was Interbike, which is this gigantic industry-wide bike show. It's huge. And because I was there for a power certification course, we toured all the different booths that sell power. And one of them is called 4i Technology, so it's number 4 and then 4 eyes. And they have a power meter created out of Cochrane. And so the girl working there, I knew her. It was, it's a very small world to be in Vegas and to run into somebody that you know. But the owner of the company, Kip is his name, he was legendary in Cochrane, everybody knew him. He sold his technology to Garmin, and I apologize if I'm misstating this. This is my understanding of it. And now he's created a power company called 4i. So, yeah.
And what is a power company?
It's a power meter for your bike, so it measures watts. So it's a measure of output. It's a measure of how hard you're working.
So it's like a gauge on your bike.
It's a gauge on your bike, and there's different ways you can have it in the hub. You can have it in the
Did you
crank.
see Real Sports last weekend about bike cheating?
No.
So
Is that where they put the engine in?
Yeah. So there's these really high tech Soviet scientists.
Yeah.
And they've made so the first cheating was
It sits in the
always
top tube. It sits in the down
in
tube,
sport
right?
was always the doping.
The doping.
For every sport.
In Chattanooga, at the 70.3 World Championships a couple weeks ago, I was there. I raced, and they were actually weighing bikes to see if they had those engines in them. Because I guess I haven't ever seen one, but I guess you can put it. You could have it, and nobody can tell it's there.
It's in the axle.
It's
and there's one in the stem.
Okay,
it has two different motors.
Yeah, and so you could just motor up a hill.
But Real Sports was showing races from back in the day. When then all of a sudden they came to like an uphill, and then just some guy just passes everyone.
And he had one of those.
And they're like, "Hello." So they're saying that's been in the game.
People will find what they can.
And I just want to say for the record, I've always been accused of taking steroids, but this is all natural. I haven't had any cosmetic surgeries. I'm not really. No one believes me.
I'm shocked.
They say your face looks photoshopped. You've
Yeah.
obviously had cosmetic
Definitely
surgery.
some lifts or tucks at some point.
And it's all natural.
Stomach stapling, whatever needed.
So how do they talk to you if they want to discuss being a coach? What's the best way
Being
to
coached?
But how do they contact you? How would they?
They can find me on my Facebook page. They can find me on my website. They could find me through you. If you talk to anybody who does triathlon in Ahwatukee, I would say a lot of people would.
Do you give out
probably
your
know who
email
I
on
am.
public or prefer
yeah.
not to?
Yeah. I can give it out. Angie at Team TriLife.com.
Angie
at
TeamTriLife.com.
Yeah. Angie
And is it .com or .ca
.com,
since
yeah.
you're Canadian?
No, it's .com. I'm not Canadian anymore. I will always be Canadian, let's be honest.
Well, tell us about your journey from that. So you grew up in Canada.
My whole life,
I've read several times in the last 30 years that 10% of the houses in Phoenix proper are owned by Canadians.
Oh, okay.
1 in 10.
That's a lot.
It's a real lot, and
Wow.
I mean it's a huge lot. And I remember the
Canadians
last
like to
boom.
leave the snow, Howard.
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of the 5 C's of Arizona, right? It's copper, climate,
corn.
cotton, cattle, and citrus.
Isn't corn one?
No.
Oh, okay. Look at that.
But
The only one I came
climate
up with.
climate is huge.
Huge.
I mean, and right now we're in the busy season where it's October, so all the
And
snowbirds.
isn't the weather nice right now?
Oh, it's just perfect.
Perfect.
But so they can. So how did you get from Canada to Phoenix?
Well, I got divorced in Canada, and I met my current husband through a mutual friend. She lives in Vancouver, and she had met him. She crewed for him in BC Bike Race. He's a mountain biker, and he does multi-day stage races. So he's raced in South Africa. He just got home from Colombia. He did a 7-day stage race in Colombia. He's raced in Breckenridge 3 times. He races all over the world: Chile, Spain, Costa Rica. And so she had met him crewing for him at a race in British Columbia. And when I was single, she said, "I think I should introduce you to Trevor." So she finally did, and we got together, and we've been married now for just over 4 years. So
4 years?
4 years. So I moved here for
Nice.
marriage. Yeah.
So
And
what?
I moved here for marriage.
Well, they say when you leave a country, it's only 3 reasons, and people don't like to talk about that country. They leave the country for a job, for a lover, or they're running from the law.
They're running from the law. I am not running from the law.
And international studies say that it's about 25% of the people that leave their country are running from law. So you came down here actually for
Totally legal.
3 reasons. You got a job as a personal trainer, you had a lover, and you're running from the law.
No, I only got one of those. I had no job. I had to build my business here.
When did you start Team TriLife?
I started it in 2006. So I was a high school teacher. I was a phys ed and sports medicine teacher. So I have a Bachelor of Physical Education and a Bachelor of Education. And when my oldest daughter was in grade 6, she got really sick with a disease they couldn't diagnose. And basically the skin was falling off of her face. And we saw infectious disease, gastroenterology, emergency doctors. I had a panel of dermatologists tell me that she was self-cutting, that she was taking a scalpel and cutting the skin off of her face. And finally, it was an emergency doctor at the Children's Hospital who lived in our town of Cochrane, and we were talking to him at a run one morning. So there's another social thing, right? We had this great club that I started called the Red Rock Running and Tri Club, and we would have a run every Saturday morning and have coffee after. It was my favorite day of the whole week. And I was talking to him and telling him what was going on with my daughter, and he said, "Bring her out to the house. I want to take a look at her." He looked at her and sent us to a dermatologist in Calgary who would have taken us 2 years to get into. She saw us that day, and it must have been a weekday that we took her out because we run on the weekends. It must have been Monday or Tuesday. That dermatologist sent us right to the Children's Hospital to rheumatology. And again, that would have been a 6 month wait. But she called rheumatology and said, "You need to see this child." So Tori was 12. We went straight to rheumatology, and the rheumatologist there, they got her well. And it was absolutely brilliant. So I was teaching part-time, and every day I would wake up 3 months that she was severely sick, and I would wake up thinking, do I want to go to school today? Because I felt immense obligation to my students, especially my sports medicine students, because that was a really academic course. Sports medicine was hard. Or do I stay home with my daughter? And it just broke my heart to make that decision every day. And coaching was just starting to take off for me at that point. And so my husband at the time and I made the decision that I was going to coach so that I had the flexibility to be at home. And then I never looked back. So the downside is I don't have a pension or any job security, but the upside is I get to see people do really amazing things. So,
You know, it's amazing. They always say that Canadians love their healthcare system,
I do.
and but you said you had long waits.
Well, so my experience, I guess I've been quite lucky. That situation is one where we got in very quickly. My dad had a lung transplant in 2002, and he passed away not long after. But we were in healthcare a lot with my dad, and anything he needed, he got. There was no waits. But
How long did he live with the lung transplant?
Only 9 months. It was actually the anti-rejection drugs that killed him. It wasn't the lung. It was a single lung transplant, and he had an idiopathic lung disease. He didn't deserve. He didn't smoke. He didn't bring this on himself. They never knew why his lungs were so bad. But when he went for the transplant, he had 17% lung function when he got the single lung, and he did have a few months of being able to breathe really well before he got sick. So
How old was he when he passed?
60.
60.
Yeah, he was young. So my experience with my dad was that he got health care whenever he needed it. With my daughter, whenever she needed it, I had a family doctor. I'd see them. I'd need it. I'd get it. When I needed knee surgery, I waited 4 or 5 months, but I went to Canmore to get it instead of in the city, and I got it fairly quickly. I don't know. I mean, there's lots of horror stories of waiting, but my view, being a Canadian, is that if you and I were to get in a car accident, I would like to know that we both get the same level of care, and it's not dependent on who has the best insurance. I don't understand this system of, I've got an athlete who I think has a stress fracture, and I suggest she goes and gets a bone scan, and she says, I can't afford it. I don't understand that system. I mean, in Canada, if you go see your family doctor and you need a bone scan, you get a bone scan. There are things you wait for, but it's not near as bad as what, in my opinion, it's not near as bad as what people say. You're going to hear other people say the exact opposite, where they've had horrendous experiences. But
You know, it's interesting because I've been honored to. So I've seen 50 countries.
Yeah.
And taken 1, 2, 3, or 4 of my boys. The thing that's America, there's these emotional issues that you never hear in other countries. One is healthcare, and one is guns.
I know.
What was the difference in guns in Canada versus here? Did everyone have a gun in Canada?
No, we don't. I don't know anybody that has a gun.
But I would think all the elk hunting and deer hunting and bear hunting.
Maybe, but we don't talk about it. So, you know, after
So you think they have the same number of guns?
nowhere
It's just
close. No.
nowhere close.
Nowhere close. My sister said this really well. After Sandy Hook, her son was 12 or 13 at the time, and she said if her son went off the deep end and wanted to do something like that, he couldn't have found a gun to save his life. There is no gun under a bed. There's no friend who's got one in a closet. There is nobody that he could have gone to and got a gun to do that. It's just a completely different culture.
I can't tell you how many of my friends have automatic weapons and 4,000 pounds of ammo.
And they carry them in their cars.
And
I don't
I
understand.
can't give away any names because I might get back, but your grandma has more. Your grandma has a small militia. I mean, it's just because it's fun, it's shooting, it's a hobby,
Yeah.
it's a lifestyle.
But they're also dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. Especially about we were talking about earlier, the suicide rate. That was the one thing I was very upset that when you talk to dentists at the Centers for Disease Control, they were not allowed to publish press releases showing that if you had a gun in your house, how many more likely you would die of suicide than without a gun. Because if you're going to make a bad decision, all you can find is a butter knife and some expired pills. That's very different than using a weapon.
Yeah. It's just a totally different mentality, Howard. We
But I
just
wanna
don't
ask
think about it.
Yeah,
so.
I want to ask one other mentality difference because very few people get to spend significant time in two different countries. I mean, how long did you live in Canada? How long did you live in the United States?
Well, I lived in Canada for 46 years.
And now you lived here for
4.
4. Okay, 4 is not a very long sample size, but I want to ask one other deal. What's it? Ahwatukee just got a medical marijuana dispensary. What's it called?
Sunflower.
Oh, is that right?
Sunflower, right there at 51st Deli. Oh, come on! I see your car parked out in
All
front of
the
it
time.
every day. And I see the Dunkin' Donuts trash in the back, and you're going in. But
I don't think I've ever bought Dunkin' Donuts. I'm not even joking.
What was the difference between what do you think, because you got 2 kids out here, what do you think of the medical marijuana store in Ahwatukee, and how would that have been different from Canada? Did Canada have medical marijuana?
I never saw one. No, not that I'm aware of. If
Yeah.
you could get it, you couldn't see it. So I think raising my kids, my oldest daughter definitely smoked a lot of pot, and she's very righteous about her right to smoke pot. She's not doing it anymore. Like we talk about it pretty openly.
But she's not doing it anymore?
No, the odd time she will, but not. The other one didn't as much, but my older one really did. And so that was in Canada, so it's very much there. It's part of the world for these kids. But I never saw a medical dispensary with it, and my choice. Have you heard of the show High Profits on CNN?
High Profits?
High Profits?
No?
You should watch it. CNN did a documentary where they followed 2 young people who had a medical marijuana dispensary in Breckenridge, and they had it right on Main Street. And I don't know how they decide to make this into a show before it takes off. So they, at the very start, these 2 kids felt that marijuana is going to be legalized in Colorado. So they held on to this dispensary location on Main Street, counting down days until it was legal. And it follows them and what happened and how the town council fell apart. And it was just crazy. But their first day that they opened up, January, I'm going to say 2014, this is very current. They did something like $50,000 in the first 3 hours. People were lined up down the street to buy pot because it was legal. And I had to, watching the show, you root. Well, I found I did. I was very supportive of the 2 that owned the business because they were doing it completely by the book. They were ethical. They were good business owners. They were good bosses. They were everything you would expect of a business person. But they were doing it in a business where there was the rules kept changing because they didn't know what the rules were. So here's these 2 people just struggling to adjust to, there's this rule, then this rule, then this rule. They can't use a bank. Everything has to be by cash. But it bothered me, the thought of having a legal marijuana business right on Main Street in a ski town. And I thought, if I was taking my family skiing and I could go to Breckenridge where there's legal pot right on Main Street that we're going to walk by, and I had kids, or I could go to Snowbird where there's no legal marijuana on Main Street, I would go to Snowbird because I don't want my kids exposed to it. And then I had to think, what's the difference between alcohol and marijuana? Because alcohol is available everywhere we go. I'll have a glass of wine now and then. And you know what I can't, this was really some soul searching watching this because it bothered me that marijuana was presented as okay. Number one, my dad died of lung cancer. Or not lung cancer, my dad died of lung disease. No matter how you slice it, when you're smoking marijuana, you're damaging your lungs.
Oh, yeah.
I have a huge issue with that. But the other thing is, I can go out and have a drink of wine, and I'm not looking to alter my mood. I'm not looking to get drunk. I'm not looking to get high. I enjoy it. It's social. One glass really doesn't do anything to me. It just is enjoyable. But if you're smoking pot, you're doing it to alter your mood. You're doing it to get high. And that for me was kind of the difference between pot being presented as a mainstream available product and alcohol being presented as a mainstream product. And I know there's a whole bunch of other issues around that, but it's a really interesting show to watch, High Profit on CNN. I highly recommend it if it's something that you're interested in.
What day of the week is it on?
It's on Netflix now.
Huh.
It's
it's a series?
It's a 10, it's just like The Making of a Murderer.
But is it all on this dispensary,
Yes.
or is every episode
No,
a different business?
It's all on this business. They follow this business for 10 episodes.
But back when you said about smoking pot, or your dad died of lung disease.
You see somebody who dies from lung disease, and smoking seems like a really bad idea.
70 cents of every healthcare dollar is spent on 4 things: cardiac, pulmonary, diabetes, and cancer. And then the next 2 biggest chunks is oral health, that's my profession, and mental health. And by the time, so if you're doing anything to hurt your heart, your lungs, gaining weight, diabetes, it all leads to cancer.
I don't understand. I don't understand why somebody wants to do that to themselves.
So how do they contact you?
Angie at teamtrilife.com. Teamtrilife.com is my website, or find me on Facebook, Angie Anderson. If you live in Ahwatukee.
Facebook.com/Angie Anderson?
No, if you just Google, if you look on Facebook for Angie Anderson, you'll find me. Or if you look for Team TriLife on Facebook, you'll find me.
So on Facebook, is your page
Angie Anderson. And then my
Facebook.com/Angie Anderson?
I don't know. I just look at Angie Anderson. So I don't know. I don't even know how it works. If you put Angie Anderson in the top bar,
right,
and you live in Ahwatukee, I'll likely pop up at the top.
Is this you right there, Team TriLife? Mm-hmm. Well, hey, thank you so much for all that you've done for Ahwatukee, for all that you've done for so many of my friends, for me personally. The swimming, you're just amazing. You're always upbeat. You're always positive. You'd always have me work on 1 or 2 things, and it was I just loved it.
Let's get you back, Howard.
Yeah,
it's time to get you back moving again. I know the
reason I quit swimming
surgery
over
is
there
working, but
is because when I saw the piranhas and the sharks in that swimming pool, I mean
okay. So you know we talk about making excuses.
You know, when Lifetime can't even get rid of the great white sharks and the piranhas in there.
Oh, Howard.
They need to.
What are we going to do with you?
Is that not enough chlorine in the pool when the great white sharks and the piranhas come back?
There is enough chlorine in the pool. Thank you.